Hey guys, it's me, Rich. The Democratic Party just had its establishment punched in the mouth, and almost nobody is talking about what this actually means. What you're watching right now isn't just a primary result. It's a generational takeover in slow motion, playing out right in front of us. And if you stick with me to the end of this video, I'm going to show you why this moment looks a lot like something that already happened inside the Republican Party, and why that comparison should make you very nervous or very optimistic, depending on which side of history you think you're on. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to RPW Media, where we are MAGA first, conservative second, Republican third, with the goal of bringing you the most honest news coverage of the day. Look, if you're new, like, subscribe, and comment, and thank you. So, take a close look at today's Democratic Party. Not the version they sell on cable news, not the focus group talking points about unity and democracy. The actual Democratic Party, the one that just got a very public reality check last week in New York City. Several powerful Democratic incumbents lost their seats, beaten by candidates with agendas so far to the left that 10 years ago, they would have been considered unelectable, even in New York. And the question you should be asking isn't who won. The question is, why now and what does it mean? Here's where it gets interesting, guys, because this isn't really about policy. It never was. Something much bigger is going on beneath the surface. And if you miss it, you're going to be completely blindsided by what comes next. Think back to the Me Too movement. On the surface, it was a campaign against sexual misconduct. Nobody was going to argue with that publicly. But look at what actually happened inside the Democratic Party during that period. Young activists used the movement to systematically weaken older establishment figures. The public message was one thing, the internal battle was something else entirely. Today, your Graham Plattners and all the other leftists, like the serious radical leftist commies, what they're doing is they are using the apparatus of the Democratic Party to get on the ballot, and then when they get elected, they go, screw you. We don't believe anything you believe. You're too weak. That's what's going on. I mean, that's the pattern. That has always been the pattern when these big time commies come forward. And it's playing out right now, just without a hashtag. OK, for decades, an aging Democratic establishment has held on to power like it was a life raft. Baby boomers stayed in charge long after most people expected them to step down and let the young lieutenants step up. Generation X was never really going to get its turn. And younger progressives, well, they've been waiting and getting angrier by the year. Just ask yourself, how long has Nancy Pelosi remained one of the most dominant figures in that party? And ask yourself, what happens when a generation that's been locked out finally decides it's done waiting? In New York City last week, they stopped waiting. The challengers who beat those incumbents weren't just ideologically different. They were operationally disciplined. They built focused organizations. They concentrated on primary voters. And they took full advantage of one of the most underappreciated factors in American politics, turnout. It's everything. Elections are decided by the people who actually show up to vote. In a low turnout primary, a passionate, organized minority can beat a larger but less motivated majority every single time. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just math. It's basic math, guys. Now, and this is important, once you understand this as a battle over control rather than just a debate over ideas, everything snaps into focus. This isn't primarily an ideological revolution. It's a generational coup. The ideas are just the justification. But let's be honest about something, because we don't do spin here. These victories happened in districts that are already among the most liberal in the country. We have not seen this type of candidate beat a more moderate Democrat in competitive statewide races or in politically balanced states. Like Graham Plattner is challenging Susan Collins in Maine. And Maine is not Manhattan. Similar candidates have shown up in places like Montana, and they face a completely different electorate. Now, most Americans outside of deep blue urban districts have shown very little interest in embracing aggressive Marxist politics. So let's be precise here. What we're watching is a real and significant shift inside the Democratic Party's activist infrastructure, not a national wave, at least not yet, but that's coming. That's exactly what people said about the Tea Party. And look what happened next. Here's the comparison that should stop you in your tracks. Think about what the Republican Party looked like 15 years ago. An entrenched establishment, leaders who had been in power for decades, a grassroots base that was growing angrier by the day, convinced that those leaders had lost touch or worse, had sold them out. They did. Ordinary Americans who believed their country was moving in the wrong direction started showing up. They opposed corporate bailouts. They believed Republican leaders had stopped listening to them. Their rallies weren't funded by political machines. They were organized by neighbors, by people who had never been politically active before. People showed up wearing tri-corner hats, demonstrated peacefully, and this is the part the media never liked to report. They cleaned up after themselves when it was over. That movement faced intense resistance from Republican insiders, and for a moment, when Mitt Romney became the nominee in 2012, a lot of those insiders thought they'd won. They thought they'd finally pushed it all back down. They had completely misread that movement. I mean, seriously, the Tea Party changed the Republican Party at its foundation. It didn't disappear. It evolved. It built infrastructure, recruited candidates. It changed who showed up to vote in the primaries, and that scared the living hell out of the Democrats. And when Donald Trump came along, he didn't create something from nothing. He reorganized a movement that was already there, gave it a national voice, and put America first at the center of its message. What people now call Trumpism didn't fall out of the sky. Its central ideas were already taking shape through the Tea Party. You didn't hear Tea Party anymore, but those people were still around and they were connected. Now look back at what's happening on the left. Disciplined activists, primary focused organizing, generational frustration, establishment figures suddenly looking very nervous. Sound familiar? The Democratic Party's establishment made the same mistake the Republican establishment made. They assumed loyalty from a base that had outgrown them. They assumed control they no longer actually had. And by the time they realized it was already too late to stop. So here's the thing that I want you to remember most. What you're watching in the Democratic Party right now is not a random blip. It's the early stages of the same kind of internal revolution the Republican Party went through. Slower, messier, more concentrated in urban districts for now. But the mechanics are identical. Generational frustration, primary discipline, low turnout leverage, and an establishment that waited too long to take it seriously. They took themselves too seriously. And look what's happening. For conservatives, there's actually something worth noting here. We've been through this. We know how it ends. The Tea Party didn't just change the GOP. It forced a reckoning that ultimately produced a stronger, more populist, more America First party. It's true. Whether the left's version of that produces something that appeals beyond Brooklyn and the Bronx remains to be seen. And whether they go with true American love or they go the whole commie way, which looks right now like it's going to go, that's up to them. But don't dismiss it. Movements that look fringe in 1 year have a way of looking inevitable in year 10. And the bright side, the more the Democratic Party lurches leftward in its activist base, the further it moves from the voters it actually needs to win nationally. Their establishment problem is, in a very real sense, our opportunity, guys. All right, if you like our videos and you haven't already, you should become a subscriber to the channel. Hit that notification bell and smack the like button because it helps us get our message out to more people. So tell me what you think about this in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Laughed at the mall 'cause your mama forgot. I know it hurt.